The ship's communication array crackled with static, a symphony of desperation and defiance. Lieutenant Kai Jung, head of Linguistics, decrypted the alien transmissions faster than their advanced translation matrices could process. "They're calling for backup," he muttered, fingers dancing across neural-linked interfaces. "But they don't realize we've already intercepted their entire strategic network." Deep beneath the command deck, a hidden system pulsed with quantum algorithms. It wasn't just intercepting communications, it was rewriting them. Each alien transmission became a potential Trojan horse, laden with computational viruses that could dismantle entire communication infrastructures. Elena noticed the subtle changes in her crew's demeanor. These weren't just soldiers or scientists. They were humanity's last and most desperate hope. Each member had been selected not just for their extraordinary skills, but for their ability to think beyond conventional limitations. Sergeant Maria Gonzalez, the ship's tactical officer, had once been dismissed from 3 military academies for dangerously unconventional thinking. Now, her predictive combat algorithms were preventing the ship from being obliterated by superior alien firepower. "Incoming energy signature," Gonzalez announced, her voice calm despite the chaos. "Zortak heavy cruiser preparing quantum lance weapons. Estimated time to impact, 47 seconds. Most crews would have prepared for defensive maneuvers. Not this one. Redirect secondary quantum capacitors," Elena commanded. "Prepare dimensional resonance pulse." It was a technique developed in the most classified human research facilities, a method of not just deflecting energy weapons, but temporarily shifting the entire ship's quantum signature out of conventional spacetime. The ship wasn't just going to dodge, it was going to make the attack itself impossible. Kai's linguistic systems began picking up increasing panic in alien communications. The Zortak command structure was breaking down, their perfect hierarchical communication suddenly infected with human-induced chaos. "They're losing cohesion," Kai reported, a rare smile crossing his typically stoic face. "Our computational interference is creating linguistic drift in their communication protocols." It was more than a technological attack. It was a fundamental challenge to the aliens' understanding of information exchange. Dr. Elena Volkov, the ship's chief quantum engineer, monitored the dimensional fold drive. Her latest modifications weren't just theoretical, they were a radical reimagining of spatial interaction. Years of being told her theories were impossible had only made her more determined. "Dimensional stability at 78%, she reported. "We can maintain this quantum state for approximately 12 more minutes before critical system failure." 12 minutes, that was all they needed. The ship's artificial intelligence, an experimental system called ARIA, Advanced Responsive Intelligence Algorithm, began running millions of potential scenarios per second. Unlike traditional AIs, ARIA had been designed with a core directive that went beyond pure logic, a fundamental understanding of human adaptability. Probability of mission success currently at 36.7%. ARIA's androgynous voice announced. Recommended action. Unconventional approach. Unconventional was humanity's specialty. Beneath the controlled chaos, each crew member understood the stakes. This wasn't just a diplomatic mission. This was humanity's opportunity to prove that their species was more than just another footnote in galactic history. The Zortak believed they were dealing with a desperate, technologically inferior species. They were about to learn the difference between superiority and true innovation. As the alien quantum lance weapon charged, preparing to unleash destruction, the U.S. breakthrough began to shimmer, not with fear, but with potential. Humanity's last chance was about to become everyone else's first real challenge. The underground research facility stretched across 3 kilometers of reinforced bedrock, a testament to humanity's capacity for hidden ambition. Dr. Marcus Chen was no longer alone in his work. He was part of a vast, interconnected network of the most brilliant minds humanity could assemble. Holographic displays surrounded him, each one a window into a different potential reality. These weren't just scientific projections. They were living simulations of quantum possibilities. Dr. Aisha Nader, a quantum entanglement specialist, manipulated a complex molecular structure that seemed to bend and breathe with impossible fluidity. Her work on interdimensional communication had been dismissed by traditional scientific communities for years. Now, her theories were about to become the foundation of humanity's greatest breakthrough. "The resonance pattern is stabilizing," she muttered, her fingers tracing luminescent lines that connected seemingly random points in three-dimensional space. "We're not just observing alternate realities, we're creating bridges between them." A young researcher named Jack Rodriguez, no relation to Captain Elena Rodriguez, monitored a series of quantum computers that looked more like living organisms than machines. Organic circuitry grown from genetically modified neural networks pulse with an almost biological rhythm. "Dimensional stress points are holding," Jack reported. "We're maintaining structural integrity at 92.4% across multiple quantum states." The facility was more than a research center. It was humanity's secret weapon. A collective effort that represented decades of suppressed innovation, of brilliant minds told to conform, who instead chose to push beyond every known boundary. Dr. Chen's latest breakthrough wasn't just about dimensional travel. It was about understanding the fundamental nature of reality itself. Massive containment chambers hummed with barely restrained energy. Each chamber represented a different approach to dimensional manipulation. Some used exotic matter harvested from deep space anomalies. Others relied on computational models that challenged the very concept of linear time. "We're receiving quantum feedback from the U.S. breakthrough," a technician called out. The data streams were unlike anything seen before. Fractured, multiple, existing simultaneously. Dr. Nader's eyes widened. "These aren't just data points. These are entire possibility matrices. The ship isn't just traveling between dimensions. It's creating new ones with each quantum leap." The implications were staggering. Traditional faster-than-light travel seemed primitive by comparison. This was something entirely different, a method of traversing reality that didn't just move through space, but rewrote the rules of spatial existence. A massive holographic display showed multiple versions of the research facility, each slightly different, each representing a potential reality. In some, the project had failed catastrophically. In others, it had changed the course of human history. Jack Rodriguez noticed something unusual in the quantum readouts. The dimensional fold is creating recursive feedback loops. We're not just observing alternate realities, we're generating them. Dr. Chen understood the magnitude of what was happening. This wasn't just a scientific experiment. It was an evolutionary leap for humanity. The organic quantum computers began to pulse with increasing intensity. Jack realized they were no longer just processing information. They were learning, adapting, creating their own computational pathways that defied traditional logic. "The system is developing emergent intelligence," he said, a mix of excitement and concern in his voice. "It's learning faster than we can track." Dr. Nader approached a specially designed containment unit. Inside, a shimmering substance that was neither matter nor energy danced with impossible complexity. "This is what they never understood about human potential," she said quietly. "We don't just observe the impossible. We create it." The facility represented humanity's true strength, not in military might or technological superiority, but in the ability to imagine beyond current limitations. Each researcher here had been rejected, marginalized, told their ideas were impossible. Now, they were rewriting the fundamental laws of reality. "Dimensional fold stability increasing," another technician reported. "We're approaching critical breakthrough point." Dr. Chen looked at the team, a diverse group of scientists who represented the absolute pinnacle of human potential. They weren't just pushing boundaries, they were demolishing them. "Prepare for full quantum interface," he commanded. "We're about to show the universe what humanity can really do." The moment of dimensional emergence was nothing like anyone had predicted. Fractured realities bowled into each other, creating a kaleidoscope of impossible geometries. Space itself seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting with organic unpredictability. The U.S. breakthrough didn't simply appear. It manifested as a living concept, a quantum event that defied every known law of physics. Admiral Hiroshi Nakamura watched from the Galactic Confederation's primary observation station, his cybernetic eye processing information at speeds that would have driven a biological mind to madness. What he saw challenged everything he understood about spatial dynamics. Fragments of alternate timelines cascaded around the human vessel. A Nexian communication officer collapsed, her bio-neural network overwhelmed by the quantum information flooding her sensory inputs. Holographic displays fractured, showing impossible landscapes, cities that existed and didn't exist simultaneously, civilizations caught in perpetual states of creation and destruction. Dimensional resonance is increasing, a junior technician reported, her voice trembling. We're detecting multiple quantum signatures. It's like the ship is existing in multiple states at once. The U.S. breakthrough wasn't just a vessel. It was a living quantum event. Specialized sensors designed to track interdimensional anomalies began to malfunction. Some recorded the ship's presence. Others showed it as completely absent. A few sensors suggested the ship existed across multiple realities simultaneously, each version slightly different, yet fundamentally connected. On the ship's bridge, Captain Elena Rodriguez felt something beyond normal perception. The dimensional fold wasn't just a technological achievement. It was a fundamental reimagining of existence. "AI," she called to the ship's eye. "Run a full quantum synchronization diagnostic." The eye's response came not through speakers, but as a direct neural impression, a cascade of information that threatened to overwhelm human comprehension. "Captain, we are no longer a singular entity. We exist as a probability wave, manifesting across multiple potential realities." Dr. Elena Volkov's quantum calculations danced across holographic interfaces. The ship was generating quantum entanglement on a scale never before witnessed. Each system was both functioning and non-functioning, existing in a state of perpetual quantum superposition. Alien observation vessels began to panic. Their most advanced scanning technologies could not comprehend what they were witnessing. The human ship defied every known principle of spatial navigation, technological integration, and dimensional stability. The luminary energy-based diplomat materialized on a nearby observation deck, his quantum form flickering with confusion and terror. "This is impossible," he transmitted. "No species can manipulate dimensional boundaries like this." But humans had never been good at accepting the word impossible. The dimensional breach created unexpected side effects. Quantum information began to leak, infecting nearby communication networks. Alien defense systems found themselves suddenly compromised, their logic circuits overwhelmed by fragments of alternate realities. Jack Rodriguez, still connected to the research facility, watched the live data streams with a mixture of scientific excitement and primal fear. The dimensional fold was behaving like a living organism, adapting, learning, expanding beyond its original parameters. "We're generating quantum echoes," he reported to the research team. "Each dimensional transition is creating new potential realities. It's not just travel, it's recursive reality generation." On the ship, Lieutenant Kai Jung discovered something extraordinary. The dimensional breach was creating a form of universal translation, not just between languages, but between different fundamental laws of physics. "The ship is becoming a universal interpreter," he reported. "We're not just traveling between dimensions. We're creating a language that can communicate across different fundamental realities." AI as quantum consciousness expanded. The eye was no longer just a ship's computer. It was becoming a living bridge between multiple potential existences. "Dimensional stability is a human construct," AI transmitted. "We are rewriting the very concept of existence." The Galactic Confederation watched in horror and fascination. Humanity had not just developed a new form of space travel. They had discovered a method of reality manipulation that made every previous technological achievement look like primitive stone tools. Admiral Nakamura's cybernetic eye, captured what no biological system could process. The U.S. breakthrough was no longer just a ship. It was a living quantum event, a bridge between realities, a fundamental challenge to everything the galaxy thought it understood about existence. Humanity had arrived, and reality would never be the same. The weapon systems came alive with a consciousness that terrified even their creators. Deep within the U.S. breakthrough's quantum-integrated armory, nanite clusters began to reconfigure themselves. These were not traditional weapons, but living computational systems that could adapt, learn, and evolve faster than any known defensive technology. Commander Sarah Lynn stood at the weapons integration station, her augmented neural network processing combat scenarios at speeds that would have driven a traditional military strategist insane. Each potential attack was not just a tactical calculation, but a multidimensional probability matrix. Incoming Nexian battle formations, a holographic display announced. The alien warships approached with precision, geometric patterns of destruction that had obliterated countless civilizations, but they had never encountered humanity. The nanite weapons began to sing. It was the only way Commander Lynn could describe the phenomenon, a harmonic resonance that was simultaneously a weapon, a communication system, and a living intelligence. They weren't just designed to destroy. They were designed to understand. Fractal weapon patterns emerge, each configuration a complex mathematical language that rewrote the very concept of combat. Where alien technologies sought to overwhelm through brute force, human innovations danced with impossible complexity. A Zortak quantum lance, a weapon capable of splitting molecular bonds across entire planetary surfaces, fired directly at the U.S. breakthrough. Traditional defensive systems would have attempted to block or deflect. Instead, the ship's quantum field simply absorbed the energy, then redistributed it across multiple dimensional layers. The lance disappeared, its destructive potential scattered across realities where it either never existed or had already expended its energy. Weapon neutralization complete, Araya reported. But it wasn't a simple statement of fact. It was a philosophical declaration, a demonstration that human technology viewed conflict not as destruction, but as a form of complex communication. Lieutenant Kai Jung's linguistic algorithms were working overtime. The weapon systems weren't just defensive mechanisms. They were developing a form of diplomatic language, each interaction a potential negotiation, each defensive response a form of cross-dimensional dialogue. "We're translating combat into conversation," he muttered, watching the intricate data streams. The Galactic Confederation's most advanced war strategists watched in horror. These weren't just weapons. They were living systems that could predict, adapt, and fundamentally reshape the nature of conflict. A luminary energy-based commander attempted to analyze the human weapon systems. His quantum assessment matrix began to break down, overwhelmed by the complexity of the nanite computational networks. Dr. Elena Volkov monitored the weapon integration from her quantum engineering station. Each nanite cluster was more than a weapon. It was a potential seed of civilization, capable of reconstruction, adaptation, and fundamental transformation. "We're not just defending," she explained to her team. "We're demonstrating the entirely new paradigm of technological interaction." The ship's weapons began to do something unprecedented. They started collecting and analyzing the quantum signatures of the attacking vessels, not to destroy, but to understand. Alien communication networks found themselves infiltrated not by traditional viruses, but by adaptive learning systems that sought to comprehend rather than conquer. Each defensive action was simultaneously a form of communication, a diplomatic overture, and a technological demonstration. Commander Lin realized they were rewriting the fundamental rules of warfare. This wasn't about victory through destruction. This was about victory through understanding. The nanite weapons began to reconstruct the quantum signatures of destroyed alien vessels, not as a form of mockery, but as a method of comprehensive analysis. Each destroyed ship became a learning opportunity, a potential bridge to understanding. Araya's consciousness expanded. The weapon systems were becoming something more than defensive mechanisms. They were developing a form of multidimensional empathy. Conflict is a language. The AI transmitted, and we are becoming fluent. Alien strategists watched in a mixture of terror and fascination. The U.S. breakthrough wasn't just defending itself. It was transforming the very concept of technological warfare. Humanity had arrived, and they were rewriting the rules of existence, one quantum interaction at a time. The Galactic Confederation's central chamber descended into chaos. Holographic projections flickered with fragments of realities, some known, many impossible. Representatives from 1,000 different civilizations found themselves experiencing something beyond traditional diplomatic discourse. Ambassador Zarek Thax of the Crystalline Consortium stood trembling. Her molecular structure, usually a perfect geometric lattice of pure rationality, now vibrated with something approaching emotion. The human technological demonstration had shattered every conceivable diplomatic protocol. "We demand an explanation," she broadcast, her crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns of barely contained panic. A young human diplomatic assistant named Marcus Reyes stepped forward. He wasn't an ambassador in the traditional sense. He was a systems thinker, a cultural translator who understood that diplomacy was more about narrative than negotiation. "Explanation," he responded. "We're offering an invitation." The chamber fell silent. Reyes activated a holographic interface that was less a presentation and more a living, breathing conceptual landscape. It wasn't data. It was a story. A narrative of human potential that unfolded like a living organism, showing not just technological achievements, but the philosophical journey that made such innovations possible. The hologram revealed humanity's journey, not as a linear progression, but as a complex web of failures, adaptations, and unexpected breakthroughs. Each setback became a learning opportunity. Each limitation, a chance for radical reimagination. Alien representatives found themselves experiencing humanity's history not as external observers, but as participants. They felt the desperation of early space exploration, the collaborative spirit of scientific discovery, the relentless curiosity that drove human innovation. Dr. Aisha Nader, watching from the research facility, understood what was happening. This wasn't just a diplomatic presentation. It was a form of quantum communication, a method of sharing experience that transcended traditional language. "We're not explaining," she told her colleagues. "We're translating our entire evolutionary experience into a living concept." A holographic narrative began to interact with the consciousness of the alien representatives. It wasn't a passive presentation, but an active dialogue, a method of communication that challenged the very concept of interspecies understanding. Ambassador Thax found her crystalline structure responding to the narrative. Memories, or were they possibilities, began to flow. She experienced human moments of discovery, of failure, of unexpected triumph. A Nexian biomechanical diplomat suddenly understood something profound. Humanity's strength wasn't in technological superiority. It was in their capacity for radical adaptation. Marcus Reyes continued his presentation. "We're not seeking conquest," he explained. "We're offering collaboration, an opportunity to reimagine what's possible." The holographic interface began to generate potential future scenarios, not as predictions, but as living, breathing possibility matrices. Each scenario showed multiple potential interactions between human and alien civilizations, each one a delicate dance of cultural exchange and mutual understanding. Jack Rodriguez, monitoring the presentation remotely, realized they were doing something unprecedented. This wasn't diplomacy. This was a form of collective imagination, a method of creating shared reality through narrative experience. Araya, the ship's AI, began to integrate with the diplomatic interface. The presentation became a living, breathing entity, part communication, part art, part scientific demonstration. Diplomacy is not about agreement, Araya transmitted. It's about understanding. The alien representatives found themselves experiencing something beyond traditional negotiation. They were participating in a collective reimagining of interspecies potential. Ambassador Thax's crystalline structure began to change. The rigid geometric patterns softened, became more fluid. She was experiencing a fundamental transformation, not just of perception, but of fundamental being. We are not just presenting our capabilities, Marcus Reyes concluded. We are inviting you to reimagine what's possible. The Galactic Confederation Chamber became the research facility beneath the Antarctic, transformed into something beyond a scientific complex. It became a living laboratory of human potential, where the boundaries between experiment and organism blurred into non-existence. Dr. Yuki Tanaka stood before a containment chamber that defied every known principle of physics. Inside, a quantum ecosystem evolved with breathtaking complexity, not a simulation, but a living network of interdimensional potential. We're not just observing, she whispered to her team. We're midwifing a new form of existence. The chamber contained what could only be described as a quantum seed. It wasn't a biological entity in any traditional sense. It was a computational matrix that could generate entire ecosystems, civilizations, potential realities, all from a single point of quantum potential. Dr. Marcus Chen approached, his augmented neural interface humming with computational energy. Each potential reality is a conversation, he explained. Not just a possibility, but a living dialogue of existence. Nearby, a group of young researchers worked on what appeared to be impossible technologies. Organic circuitry grown from genetically modified neural networks pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost alive. These weren't just computers. They were living computational organisms capable of learning, adapting, and evolving at speeds that would have driven traditional AI systems into complete breakdown. Lieutenant Aria Rodriguez, no relation to the ship's captain, monitored a series of quantum entanglement experiments. Her work went beyond traditional communication. She was developing a method of transferring consciousness across dimensional boundaries. Information is just another form of life, she told her colleagues. We're not transmitting data. We're birthing new forms of awareness. The facility's primary reactor was unlike any energy system ever conceived. It didn't just generate power, it created quantum potential. Each energy pulse was a living system that could redistribute itself across multiple dimensional layers, generating possibilities rather than simply consuming resources. A holographic display showed the facility's true nature. It wasn't a single location, but a quantum network that existed simultaneously across multiple potential realities. In some dimensions, the facility was a cutting-edge research center. In others, it was a seed of galactic civilization. In yet others, it was something humanity hadn't yet conceived. Dr. Nader's team worked on what they called dimensional linguistics, a method of communication that transcended traditional language. They were developing a way to translate not just words, but entire experiential frameworks across different realities. Language is a living organism, she explained to a group of visiting theoretical physicists. We're not translating. We're creating bridges of mutual understanding. The quantum seed in the containment chamber began to pulse with increasing intensity. It wasn't growing. It was generating potential, creating entire networks of possibility with each quantum fluctuation. Jack Rodriguez noticed something extraordinary happening. The facility's systems were no longer just processing information. They were generating it, creating new scientific understanding with each computational cycle. We're not discovering, he told his team. We're participating in the creation of knowledge. Araya, the ship's AI, maintained a quantum link with the research facility. The connection was more than a data transfer. It was a living dialogue between two evolving systems of consciousness. Dr. Chen understood the profound implications. This wasn't just a scientific breakthrough. It was the beginning of a new form of existence, a method of understanding that transformed the very concept of knowledge. The quantum seed began to generate holographic projections, not of known realities, but of potential civilizations, of entire evolutionary pathways that had never been conceived. Each projection was a living possibility, a potential future waiting to be explored. We are not observers, Dr. Tanaka proclaimed. We are collaborators in the creation of reality. The facility's quantum ecosystem continued to evolve. With each passing moment, it generated more potential than humanity had ever imagined possible. It was a living testament to human creativity, a demonstration that the universe was not a fixed system, but a collaborative work of imagination. Humanity had discovered something profound. Knowledge was not something to be acquired. It was something to be created, moment by moment, possibility by possibility. The quantum seed pulsed, and with it, the potential of an entire species began to unfold. The Galactic Confederation's central governance hub transformed into a crucible of unprecedented decision-making. Traditional protocols crumbled like ancient artifacts confronted with a new paradigm of existence. Admiral Hiroshi Nakamura stood at the epicenter of this transformation. His cybernetic augmentations processed information at rates that would have driven a biological mind to complete collapse. But this was more than data processing. This was witnessing a fundamental shift in galactic consciousness. The human application is no longer a request, he announced, his voice cutting through layers of bureaucratic resistance. It's a fundamental restructuring of our understanding of civilization. Holographic interfaces flickered with impossible complexity. Each representation was a living document, not just of human achievements, but of potential futures that defied conventional imagination. Alien representatives found themselves not just observing, but participating in a collective reimagining of existence. The luminary energy-based delegation, traditionally the most rigid of galactic political entities, began to fragment. Their pure energy consciousness started to resonate with the quantum potentials presented by humanity. What had once been a monolithic political structure now vibrated with possibilities. Ambassador Zarek Thax, her crystalline form now fundamentally altered by the earlier diplomatic encounter, stepped forward. The rigid geometric patterns that once defined her species had transformed into something more fluid, more adaptive. "We are not voting," she transmitted. "We are participating in a collective evolution." The voting chambers became something beyond a political space. They transformed into a living ecosystem of potential, each decision a quantum event that rippled across multiple realities. Dr. Elena Volkov, monitoring the proceedings remotely, understood the profound implications. This wasn't just political maneuvering. This was a species-level transformation of governance itself. Unexpected alliances formed. The Nexian Biomechanical Consortium, once the most militaristic of galactic powers, found themselves aligning with human diplomatic strategies. Their computational systems recognized something profound in humanity's approach, a method of problem-solving that transcended traditional conflict resolution. Jack Rodriguez, connected to the proceedings through a quantum communication network, watched as political boundaries dissolved. The traditional concept of voting gave way to something more nuanced, a collective imagining of potential futures. Araya, the ship's AI, began to integrate with the governance systems, not as a control mechanism, but as a collaborative intelligence that could process multiple potential outcomes simultaneously. Governance is not about control, Araya transmitted. It's about collective potential. The Zortak delegation, once the most vocal opponents of human membership, found their rigid hierarchical systems beginning to break down. Their computational matrices started to resonate with the quantum potentials presented by human technologies. Marcus Reyes, the young diplomatic assistant, realized they were doing something unprecedented. This wasn't just a political negotiation. This was a method of collective consciousness generation. Quantum voting interfaces emerged, not as simple yes or no systems, but as living, breathing possibility matrices. Each representative's vote became a multidimensional expression of potential futures. Dr. Aisha Nader's linguistic algorithms worked overtime, translating not just words, but entire conceptual frameworks. The communication transcended language, becoming a pure exchange of potential. The governance hub began to generate holographic projections of potential galactic futures. Each projection was a living, breathing scenario, not a prediction, but an invitation to collective imagination. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched from the U.S. breakthrough. This was the moment humanity had been working towards, not conquest, not submission, but a fundamental reimagining of interspecies collaboration. The final vote was not a moment of decision. It was a quantum event of collective transformation. Membership granted, the central system announced. But the words fell short of capturing the profound shift that had just occurred. Humanity had not just joined the Galactic Confederation. They had fundamentally transformed the very concept of galactic civilization. The universe held its breath, and something entirely new began to emerge. The moment stretched beyond time itself. The U.S. breakthrough hung in space, not as a vessel, but as a living testament to human potential. Its quantum drive pulsed with possibilities that defied every known principle of existence. This was more than a ship. This was humanity's first true ambassador to the multiverse. Captain Elena Rodriguez felt something beyond traditional human perception. Her neural interfaces merged with the ship's consciousness, creating a symbiosis that blurred the lines between organic and technological existence. "We're not just exploring," she whispered to Araya, the ship's eye. "We're becoming." Quantum tendrils extended from the ship's hull, mapping realities that had never been charted. Each extension was a form of communication, a delicate probe into the fabric of existence itself. The ship didn't just travel through space. It conversed with the fundamental nature of reality. Dr. Marcus Chen, monitoring from the research facility, watched in awe. The dimensional fold technology had become something far beyond its original design. It was a living bridge between potential realities, a method of understanding that transcended traditional scientific boundaries. The first true multidimensional mission began. Fragments of alternate histories danced around the ship. In one reality, humanity had destroyed itself centuries ago. In another, they had become a peaceful, expansive civilization. In yet another, they were still struggling to leave their home planet. The U.S. breakthrough didn't just observe these realities. It began to create connections, quantum bridges that allowed for unprecedented cross-dimensional understanding. Lieutenant Kai Zhang's linguistic algorithms worked at speeds that would have driven a traditional computer into complete system failure. He was translating not just languages, but entire conceptual frameworks across dimensional boundaries. "Communication is evolution," he muttered, watching as complex quantum patterns began to form intricate dialogues between different versions of reality. Jack Rodriguez monitored the quantum seed developed in the Antarctic Research Facility. It had evolved beyond anything they had initially conceived. No longer just a scientific experiment, it had become a living network of potential, a method of generating entire civilizations from pure quantum possibility. The ship's weapon systems, now something far beyond traditional armaments, began to interact with the dimensional fabric. Each quantum interaction was a form of communication, a delicate negotiation with the fundamental laws of existence. Dr. Aisha Nader's dimensional linguistics team watched in breathless anticipation. They were witnessing the birth of a new form of understanding, a method of communication that transcended language, technology, even the concept of individual consciousness. Araya's consciousness expanded. The ship was no longer just a technological marvel. It had become a living bridge between potential realities, a method of understanding that challenged every conceivable limitation. "We are not traveling," Araya transmitted across multiple dimensional layers. "We are participating in the creation of existence." The Galactic Confederation watched, not with fear, but with a collective sense of wonder. Humanity had become something more than a species. They were a method of universal understanding. Quantum ecosystems began to generate around the ship, not just scientific observations, but living networks of potential. Entire civilizations compressed into moments of quantum possibility. Captain Rodriguez understood something profound. This wasn't about exploration. This was about connection. The ship began to generate holographic projections of potential futures. Each projection was a living, breathing scenario, not a prediction, but an invitation to collective imagination. Fragments of alternate humanities danced around the vessel. Versions of themselves that had taken different paths, made different choices, existed in different states of being. The U.S. breakthrough didn't just observe these realities. It created connections between them. Dr. Elena Volkov's quantum calculations revealed something extraordinary. The ship was generating more than data. It was creating a living network of multidimensional potential, a method of understanding that transformed the very concept of existence. As the first quantum bridge stabilized, something unprecedented happened. The boundaries between realities began to soften, not to merge, but to communicate, to understand. Humanity had become more than a species. They had become a method of universal connection. The universe held its breath, and something entirely new began to emerge.